Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. This episode is brought to you by Atto Aesthetics, the #1 coaching company for aesthetic professionals wanting to step into the role of spa CEO and build a business around a life you love. And today I am so excited to have one of my very favorite business besties, Nicki, who is celebrating her new book, Copywriting Strategies. This book could not come at a better time because with the pandemic, so many people have pivoted towards the online space, which makes effective copy even more important than ever. Now, copy has always been such an important part of business, but it's one that doesn't really get talked about, at least as much as the other aspects of marketing when we're talking about funnels and all of that kind of stuff. But copy is really what ties everything together. And in this interview, Nicki's going to share the difference between content and copy. Very important distinction there. And also some other key insights that business owners should know when creating their own copy or hiring a professional to do it for them. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Make sure you grab Nicki's book, get all of the bonuses. We've got the link below this episode. And let's go ahead and play that interview. All right, Nicki, welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. This is, we were just saying, I have such cool friends. I have published author friends, and we are here to talk about your book, Copywriting Strategies today, which is really an essential for any business owner when we get into like, why don't we just start with what the heck is copywriting? Is that a fancy marketing term? What is it?
It sounds like a fancy marketing term. Yeah. And actually, when I first got into it, people are like, so is this legal? Is this trademarking? No, totally different. Copywriting is it's business and marketing writing. It's the emails you write. It's your website. It's brochures. It's all that kind of stuff. Anything that you're trying to convey your message to your target audience.
So your spa menu, your social media that you're writing, even on your any of the handouts about your membership or whatever these things that we're writing in spa, all of that copy is meant to convey a specific message to your target audience. And it's different than how we write to a friend or how we write a letter or how we write an essay. It's very purposeful and intentional to target that individual person. But what a skill, right? How did you become a copywriter?
A billion years ago when I was in high school, my dad was actually a marketing director at the time. He is retired now, but he would bring home extra work for me to do and I would do it and he would give me feedback.
Child labor.
I know, right? Like I don't remember being paid specifically, but he must have. He's very fair. I mean, and even if nothing else, the career has more than paid for the extra hours. But, and then, went to school for PR, didn't like PR, kind of stumbled around a little bit, worked at a health club, and then remembered that copywriting was a thing. And my mom had sent me a book about copywriting. And I went, oh yeah, I could do this. And then kind of jumped in with both feet. So I've been doing it for more than 15 years, getting really close to 20 years, which is crazy.
And I'm so glad there's people like you in the world. And I remember so our copywriter, Danielle, she made my life so much easier because I am such a verbal processor. I am speak to think, which is why podcasting works so well for me. But when I have to write, I'm such an over explainer that something that could take you probably a paragraph would take me 3 pages. And that's not efficient in conveying a message to an ideal client. So copy, writing good copy equals more money in your business. It's that important of a skill set. So when people are saying like, what do I hire out? It's for me knowing that was not my skill set. That was one of the first things that I did hire out. And in your book, which I think is such an important concept, you're teaching not only how to write copy, but also how you hire it out. Mm-hmm. So talk about like, how did this book come to life? Now that you're a published author and have an author page and all those fancy pants things.
Look at me. It's very exciting. Frankly, as someone who always loved writing, to be able to, first of all, as a career, to be able to say that I'm a writer is amazing. But then also, yeah, like, look at me, I've got a published book, check me out. But actually it was just a kind of wonderful happenstance. A publisher approached me and said, hey, people are interested in copywriting. We would love to put something together. Are you interested in writing it? And I said, well, yes, I really, really am. Yes, exactly. I would be happy to do that. I kind of moved everything else on my plate. So it was a kind of busy couple of months there. But the thing is that, like you were saying, copywriting, messaging is so crucial to a business. And because a lot of business owners don't understand it or kind of don't know how to approach it, what often ends up happening is that business owners kind of save messaging for the last minute, or push it off, or try to give it to a VA or something like that.
I don't want to do social media.
Copy.
I'm going to hire a VA. It's like, but you need to know what the message is.
Exactly. Well, and frankly, here's a tip too. If anyone's VAs could actually write copy professionally, they wouldn't be charging VA rates. They would be charging copywriter rates, and they would be working as copywriters. But it's such a crucial part of, you can't have a business if you can't convey to people why they should pay for your business. And that's true for any type of business. I think sometimes in certain industries like spas, for example, I think, well, if I provide these services, if I tell people we have these services and I just provide really great services, people will tell their friends. And I mean, we do know that is true to a certain degree. Referrals are super important, but there also has to be a way that you convey what you do and what your spa is all about, and not just the services, but the providers and everything that makes the full experience, that makes them choose your spa over the other spa down the street. We're not going to pretend there isn't a ton of competition.
Right. It's conveying the brand and like, who do you identify with? And that's one of the hardest things. Like, I'll ask spa owners just yesterday on our Growth Factor call, I was like, what does your company do? Tell me in 2 sentences what you do, and not, we provide spa services. Like, what do you do? Are you giving confidence? Are you giving, like all of these pieces? And tell me quickly, and how are you going to convey that in social media? How are you going to convey that on your website? How are you going to convey that in all the marketing materials that you put out there, so that you are attracting the right people?
Mm-hmm.
That's such a key thing.
Yeah. And that's where that brand loyalty comes from, when they know what your spa stands for, because you have put that messaging out there and then you've followed it up with the experience in the spa. When they know what your spa stands for, it becomes something that they align themselves to. And then that's where they always go to your spa. It's not I wanted a massage on Friday, but this spa doesn't have one, so I'm just going to call all these other ones. It becomes no, this is my spa. This is the spa I go to. And that's part of how you engender that loyalty is by making it clear through your messages, to your point, exactly what you stand for, who you are, what your brand is all about. And don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily easy to do. Writing for ourselves is the hardest thing that anyone will do. And that's even true of copywriters. When we have to write our own websites, spend a lot of time looking at the screen going,
So tell me, like, okay, I'm a business owner. When do I decide, should I write my own copy? You're teaching how to write copy in this book, but you also teach how to hire it out. How do I know where I'm at and what is the right decision for me? Should I learn and invest, or should I just hire someone who this is what they do?
Absolutely. Everyone should understand the principles of copywriting. Everyone should understand what you're trying to achieve, and at least the foundations of how to get there. Because if you don't understand those principles, how can you possibly evaluate it when a copywriter brings something back to you and says, here you go, you're going to read it and go, all right, that sounds okay. And you'll put it up on your website. Whereas when you have a foundational understanding of what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to convey, all of everything, even if you don't want to write it yourself, you will be better able to work with your copywriter. And so that's what I was trying to achieve in this book, is that you get that understanding. And if you want to write some of it, you can, but also you can hire a copywriter. I mean, really it comes down to so much of owning a business, right? It's time versus money. If you have a whole bunch of money, then yeah, hire a copywriter right away. Understand the foundations, do some reading and some learning, but yeah, hire a copywriter right away.
What am I looking for if I'm hiring a copywriter? How do I need to understand the principles first? Like what am I, do I just, anyone that says they're a copywriter, do they, right? Like,
yeah.
Is this something you have a certification for? Is this something you go to college for? Or can any Joe Schmo just say, here's the internet and I just put up a website and I'm a copywriter? Right?
Well, that is part of the problem because anyone can just say, yes, I'm a copywriter, hire me. And that's actually, I did put a section in the book with some steps of things to look for and also how to go about evaluating copywriters. But yeah, to your point, you want to look for, first of all, you want to look for a good portfolio. You want to look for someone who has depth and breadth of experience, who has written in a couple of different voices for a couple of different companies, because that's the key, right? When you're hiring a copywriter, you don't want your work to sound like them. You want your pieces to sound like you, because you are the client. It's your spot. It should sound, everything should seamlessly sound like it just came out of your fingers into the keyboard. So you're looking for someone who can demonstrate that they have written for several different brands and they've been able to take on that voice so that it sounds seamless, which I think is confusing for sometimes. Sometimes people go to copywriters' websites and they go, I like the way this copywriter sounds. And that's not what you're looking for. You want a copywriter that's going to be able to sound like you. And the best way to tell that in advance is if they've been able to do that for other people.
I know with Danielle, with our copywriter, so she writes, she listens to every single podcast episode. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, good for you.
And then she writes, and I'm like, that's exactly what I would say. It's like she knows what I'm going to say before I say it because she's now listened to almost 300 episodes of me talking. And so she gets my voice so strong, right?
Yeah.
And that's such an incredible thing because you want it as the business owner to be your core values, who you are. But again, as the business owner, like I need to focus on the CEO activities. I need to focus on these other things rather than struggling to write copy to convey a message that Danielle can do in 1 second, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. So getting someone in your voice, where do you find a copywriter? Where am I looking to if I want to hire someone?
Yeah, really, the first place to look is to ask the people around you. Ask your fellow business owners. Ask if you're in Facebook groups, post in Facebook groups. You know, one of the things that we teach, I have written this book, but I also teach people to become professional copywriters. And we often talk about, as professional copywriters, going into groups and just offering your help. So there can be that nice little meetup. If you're in a group and you're saying, hey, I'm looking for a copywriter, if a copywriter can come in and say, actually, I am a copywriter. I'd love to talk with you about this. So first thing is start spreading the word. And you can post jobs on Indeed. You can post jobs on God, is Monster even still a thing? I don't even know if that's still a thing, but
I think it is. And like ZipRecruiter,
and
like
ZipRecruiter,
kind of
exactly. I would, for copywriting at least, I would really avoid sites like Upwork and Freelancer. It's hard to gauge the skill. And frankly, I don't recommend it for copywriters either, because you have a lot of people trying to drive down each other's rates. And that might seem like a good thing, but you need a skilled copywriter, and truly skilled copywriters are not going to be on Upwork and LinkedIn. You're going to get a lot of people.
What is the estimated pay range? Like I know everybody's going to charge something different, but do copywriters charge per hour, per word, per project? Like what does it look like? And what is the approximate range?
Yeah. Copywriters should not be charging by the word. If you're talking to a copywriter and they're talking about charging by the word, you're talking to someone who's not a professional. There's a difference between content and copy. Copy is writing that's designed to persuade or to sell. And content is writing that is designed to educate or to entertain or to inspire. And that's where you're talking about your blog posts and that kind of thing. And those are two very I would say vary, but they're two different fields, and copywriting requires a much higher level of skill. Now, copywriters will sometimes write blog posts for their clients or that kind of thing. But you will, speaking of people just putting stuff up and saying, I'm a copywriter, you will come across people who say that they're copywriters, but their portfolio is filled with just content. And if you see that, run the other way, because they don't know what they're doing. And that's the same thing with charging by the word. If they're charging by the word, they're going to be trying to write as much as possible and write things as long as possible. And that's not what you want. You want them to get to the point and get to it relatively quickly. So I will say it's probably a better way to say it is this. If you're talking to a copywriter, they shouldn't have an immediate estimate or an immediate price for you until you've had a conversation with them, because every project is different. Every client is different. If they say, oh, my price for a landing page is $1,000. There's so many factors that aren't a part of it. Some landing pages are super short. Some landing pages are incredibly long. So if a copywriter starts giving you quotes or anything like that before they've had a conversation with you, that's another red flag. You want someone who's going to have a conversation, really understand what you're trying to do, what this project is all about, before they then go back, kind of figure out how long it's going to take them, what editing is going to be involved. There will be a couple of rounds of back and forth just because they're not in your head completely. Mm-hmm. And then they should come back with the price for you. And then at that point, it's up to you to decide whether or not that price works for you or that price doesn't work for you.
And when you're looking at price on copy, if it is something, I always like to look at what is my return on investment. And by having this done, if I have a landing page that converts at a great percentage, how long is it going to take me to get a return on that? Right. Mm-hmm. And what would it convert at if I wrote it myself? Mm-hmm. So I'm always looking at those types of things. And I know sometimes it can be like, oh my gosh, like you get this price shock, but then you realize but what is that going to bring into my business?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a piece of advice I would give people too, if they're thinking about, should I hire a copywriter? Should I not? You don't have to have a copywriter write everything. Because once you start digging into, oh my gosh, wow, there's a ton of writing to do. You can go through what projects you have and evaluate which pieces are, to your point, going to have the most impact. You don't need to have a copywriter write necessarily all of your emails, but say, for example, you have a Black Friday promotion. You might want to have some extra special talent going into those emails, or to your point, a landing page or something like that. That's really important for people to take action to do something there. Those would be high impact projects, and those would be the best investment. You can hire a copywriter to do everything. Absolutely. And like you were saying, once you get to that point, if it's not your zone of genius, outsource it. That's the smart business owner way with everything. Right. Mm-hmm. But until you get to that point, look for what projects are going to be most high impact. And that's what you want to hire your copywriter for.
So what questions am I not asking about copywriters? Think about, I know you just wrote a whole book, so you probably thought of a lot of questions, but what are the things that spa owners or business owners should know? Or should they just go buy the book?
Yes, obviously. However, there are some things that they can know in advance. I think one of the things that makes copywriting so overwhelming for business owners is they look at everything they have to write and they think of it as just this list of, I have to write email 1, I have to write email 2, I have to write email 3, and think of it as sitting down to a blank page and just putting words on there. And that is overwhelming. That's really scary, but that's not really the way it should be. Everything that you are writing should have a distinct purpose, mm-hmm. and should have a next step that you want the reader to take. It might be, if it's a series of emails, it might be something as simple as, keep your eyes peeled for the next email, something like that. Or it might be, check out the blog for more information, or watch this video or whatever. But there should be a purpose to everything that you're writing. And I see that a lot in emails I get in my inbox. You can tell that people were just writing because they went, oh gosh, I need to send out an email. Instead of just sending stuff because you need to send it, take a moment and think through, okay, what am I trying to accomplish with this? What am I trying to build a relationship? Am I trying to educate them about something? Am I trying to bust a myth about something, which is an incredibly impactful message to put out there? But this is just a little side tip. When you bust a very prevalent myth, it immediately shows you to be the expert and immediately separates you from the competition. So that's really, really powerful. But
and something, sorry to interrupt,
No.
that I think is really important too, is like in spas, we're not reinventing the wheel, right? When someone first comes to your page, you can set up an automation, right? It can be the same email sequence that they get that's talking about your brand and your brand story and the services you offer and how to book and like whatever your niche is. So you can get that sequence written, and anytime someone joins your email list, they just go through that sequence, right? So you don't have to, you're still creating all those touch points. You can create follow-up emails after services that are automated, and so there is some heavy lifting up front to get that created, but it takes away the burden or the overwhelm of, you want me to write an email every single week, and I'm running the business and I'm doing the services. And, it's like, no, like get that done, get that automated. And then it certainly lightens the load.
Exactly. Well, and who hasn't sat down on their desk, looked at their schedule and gone, oh gosh, I need to send an email today. I need to write an email about something. And it throws off everything.
It's usually social media for spa people. It's usually like, what I find in spa most of the time, and I think this is a huge area of opportunity, they are sending one email at the beginning of the month that simply lists out their promotions. And so that for me is like, I'm knocking on your door, and every time I come to your door, I'm selling something. It's like those people that sell vacuums, and go door to door and sell vacuums. But it's like, okay, you want to build a relationship. You want to show who you are as a brand. You want to show your expertise. So I love the 80% value, 20% promotion. That's why if you're doing every week, sure, one email can be your promotion, but then share the other ones that have the value in there as well, and educate them, give them skincare tips on, there was one gal in our Spa Retail Rockstar program that I still like, I thought this was the most brilliant idea. She was like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing with social media. She had all these tips on there. And the products that are like in the tube upside down with like a squirty thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there's product still in the top that you don't get out. She was on social media. She took the picture, she cut the top off of the box. She used a Q-tip to get it out and was showing like, here's how you get the rest of the product out. I was like, this is so brilliant and so much value. And your clients are going to love that you are saying like, let me show you how to not waste this product, this very good product that you spent your time and money on. And here's how not to contaminate it. And I'm like, that can be an email that's like, head over to Instagram to see my video on how to save this much money on product, right?
Yeah.
Like
things
and then, like that.
As a client, it vastly increases that know, like, and trust factor.
Yep.
I know that she's not the kind of spa owner who's just trying to get me in the door, foist a bunch of product on me and get me out the door. She cares about me getting everything that I can. And clearly it's a good product if I'm getting all the way to the end of it and want to get as much out of it as I can. I think sometimes people think, well, if I'm going to automate emails, then I'm going to lose the relationship factor. I'm not going to be connecting with them. And that's really not a thing. I mean, to your client, there's no difference between you setting up an email and writing it well in advance and they just get it at a certain time versus you sitting down and writing in that day. You can still convey just as much genuine empathy and care and enthusiasm in an email that's been written months in advance versus an email that's been written that morning. And I think, and also too, if you come up with something great on social media, you can have this automated campaign, but you can go in and tweak it, all right. Yeah, email 5 was this, and it's okay, but it doesn't have a huge open rate. So let's go in and throw in this video for not throwing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let's put in the link to this video because they loved it on social media, but they're going to love it here. And you have this opportunity to reuse your best information. And so that, to your point, everybody gets a chance to see it when they're going to be interested in it.
And so much of our content is evergreen. Like, people have questions about where to park. People have questions about spot etiquette. People have questions about what you specialize in. That's not going to change from last month to this month unless your whole business model changes, right? So writing it in that way, in an evergreen way where it can be used at any time and is relevant to anyone that is a new client, those are the things that you automate, right? And then I like to sprinkle in current events in social media. There's always these different trends. There was this time during COVID, like when everything was shut down and everyone was doing these black charcoal masks, and it was, or like the jelly mask, or there'll be these things that happen in social media that it's like, all right, you're the professional, let's address this trend.
Yeah.
And you do that on social, but it doesn't need to be part of the automated sequence, right? So I love that. And you can easily say, this is what I did with Danielle when she first started working with us. I would just brain dump a ton of information on a Google Doc or send her a video or whatever. So she had the idea of, here's what I want to talk about. Here's what I want to say. And then she makes it a million times better. You can say, here's my nurture. Here's what I want in this email sequence. Here's the things I care about. Can you flesh it out?
Well, and your copywriter should be a good copywriter should be a partner with you. They should be someone who will bring ideas to you or will say, hey, it seems like this is a question that's coming up. What if we put this here in this sequence or anything like that? And when you're talking to a copywriter, they should, hopefully you'll get this effect from the book as well, to start thinking about your business in different ways and thinking about how you're marketing it. But a copywriter, by virtue of the questions that they're asking you as they're preparing for a project, they should really be, I don't want to say challenging because I don't want it to sound like it's difficult for the business owner, but they should be kind of inspiring you to think about your business in ways that you maybe hadn't before. It should be that every once in a while you're talking with your copywriter and you should go, oh gosh, no, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find out. Or, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way before. And it doesn't mean that your copywriter is a genius and depends on your copywriter. And your copywriter is not always going to be right. They may have suggestions that aren't right for your business, and you will know that because you are the expert in your business. But it shouldn't be just you saying, here, write me this. And then they write it, they come back and boom. You should have a copywriter that you can rely on. And it doesn't mean that you have to be giving them a certain amount of work every week in order to build that relationship. Even if you work with them sporadically or you give them a call whenever you have a project, they should still be kind of like an outpost for your business. They should be a partner with you anytime they're working with you. And quite frankly, a good copywriter is going to be thinking about you even when you're not working on projects together.
So tell me where everyone can get this book. Yes, where do they go? What are the links?
If you go to copywritingstrategiesbook.com, there are some pre-sale bonuses if you purchase and then come back in and let us know. All the information will be on the page, but give us your order number. You will get access to pre-sale bonuses, stuff for business owners about how even more in depth about how to hire copywriters, what projects you can start with, all kinds of other stuff. Very
all right. So we will include that link below. Check it out, you guys. Copywriting is I think it's an overlooked piece in business, but it's so important. So check it out, copywritingstrategiesbook.com. We've got the link below. Nicki, thank you so much. This has been so great. Love having you on, and congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome to be here.